Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
For multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass right there.
Go, go, go. We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the Operator Podcast. This is going to be episode 103. We've been moving around a little bit, got a kick-ass new studio. I'm actually up in Cape Cod proving 2 things. One, that a 5-month-old baby can swim if given the proper motivation. And 2, you are not on the menu because there's great white sharks out here and they don't mess with you. But just like I've always said, if you do get attacked by a shark, you screwed up. Stop giving them a bad rap except for the bull sharks because they're fucking dicks. If you didn't listen to last week's episode with Clark and Pistato, I highly recommend going back and checking out episode 102 because we were able to talk about what Navy SEALs do, what they did pre 9/11. Clark and I are both old dudes, and I wanted to find out what West Coast guys did before 9/11, and that led to Pattaya Beach, Thailand. And I'm not going to try to recreate it, but you should go back and check it out because the train went off the tracks, and it was a lot of fun. During that time also, since the last time I recorded, because we delayed a little bit, I went back to Mexico for Ibogaine treatment, which is a plant-based medicine that's a hell of a lot older than this country, and it's one that helps with everything from PTS, addiction, anxiety, infertility, all kinds of stuff, and it's a great thing. That's why the government doesn't let us use it, because it works. And if something works, then a lot of billionaires are going to lose money because we are not spending money on the pills that they want to keep feeding us because they're getting paid, obviously, too. I went down this time to Mexico. I'm going to get into it in a later episode because I went down with some veterans, and I had some buddies that were vets go after me, and I want to get another veteran in studio with me and talk about his experience because it's different every time. The first time I did Ibogaine the first time back in October of 2023, but I did it by myself. There are different places they do it. I went to a place that was like designed for detox, which means I was alone. Not to say I was detoxing, but like I said, Ibogaine's a drug that can cure heroin addiction overnight. So I went to one of those houses because I kind of wanted to be alone. I wasn't sure what to expect. So I did Ibogaine alone, I did Reiki alone, and I did 5-MeO DMT alone. Great experience, but I wasn't with people. This time I went with 4 other veterans, SF guys, all Army dudes, and it was really cool to be with combat veterans because, I mean, a good example is the first time we sat down, we were in a little semicircle, and it's a nice place. Mexico's beautiful. It was actually funny talking about Mexico, and we'll get into stuff that the media says and how perception versus reality. I asked one of the locals there, how bad is the crime right here? And because I'm expecting cartel stories, because you do see, I'm not defending cartels by any means, but he said the biggest issue for him going back and forth to San Diego was the local cops because they just shake you down. So the dudes that are on your team would shake you down like you're traveling with something. Like one example was my man was donating some clothes that he got from San Diego. He's bringing them down to some families near Tijuana, and the cops stopped him, and he said, well, they were checking his car. Because obviously people sneak drugs into Mexico, not the other way around. We like to sneak fentanyl from the United States into Mexico. That's that's China does that from Mexico to us. Anyway, he brought his clothes that he was donating down, then the cop stopped him. He's like, hey, you need to pay taxes on this or whatever. And he's like, well, I'm not sure how it works, but how do we do it? And the cop's kind of like, well, $80 and you're good. And that's obviously kind of shady. So he just went to hand him $80 in cash, and the cop's like, no, you got to put it in the donation. So he put it in the box of donations. The cop went back like he was checking the donations, and all of a sudden there's $80 in his thing. But yeah, we went down there. It was very cool. That was I didn't have an experience with the law enforcement in Mexico, but I went to this house there, and 4 veterans and I were sitting around and introducing each other. Never been to any kind of therapy with other veterans. And when guys were introducing themselves, it was funny because I remember someone would say something and I would laugh, and another dude would laugh, and then some other dude would start explaining his issues, and other people would laugh. And we're all saying, well, hey, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at you are describing my issues, the issues that I have with be it alcohol or pills that the VA likes to give you, and then the PTS that comes with combat. And these guys had some combat stories that I've never heard, that I didn't know what other guys went through. You know, I was at SEAL Team 6 for most of the war, and my job was different than an SF guy because I just have never done their mission before, so I didn't know what it was like to not have air support. They didn't have it. I had dudes there telling me of days-long firefights, and that's insane. Daytime firefights. I'm thinking a long gunfight is a minute. That's a long time for people shooting at you. And he's telling me about bounding and Overwatch and fighting Taliban in Helmand Province and stuff like that. But this time I did go through, like I said, with veterans. And when we did Ibogaine, we had 5 of us in the same room. We did the fire ceremony as the sun was going down. It was beautiful looking at the ocean. You burn your... you write down a list of here's the stuff I'm here for. If you want to say it out loud, do it. If not, you don't. And you put it in the fire, and you're kind of making peace with it. And you go up, you take your Ibogaine, the way they administer it. Takes about an hour and a half, depending. And it kicks in, and then welcome to hell, bitch. It's a rough ride, but I was able to do it in a room with other dudes. And again, I'm not going to get into the Ibogaine today, but it's not, you sort of hallucinate, but you're coherent the whole time, and you're laying down with a mask over your eyes, and they're playing old school native music to make it work and hit the peak. And when you start to peak on Ibogaine, basically it's your mind showing you stuff that you've suppressed. It's your mind opening up, and your mind's talking to your mind. So stuff that you maybe have forgotten that was really bad in your life, it brings it up and it literally shows it to you. You're seeing it as if it's there, but you're coherent. And then you start hearing people behind you. So imagine yourself laying down in a mostly dark room with loud music playing, really cool old school native stuff too. And you can hear people talking, and like you'll pull your mask off and look around. There's nobody there. You know nobody's there, but you can hear them. And even when you're masked down, you can see them. And so I got this Delta guy next to me, and I can hear him talking, and I take my mask off and I go, "What?" And he takes his mask off and goes, "What?" I go, "What? What did you say?" And he goes, "I didn't say anything. Why do you have a mariachi band behind you?" And that's kind of the journey, but it's a kick-ass time. It's great healing. It does need to be legal here because it really will help everything, not just PTSD. The company Ambio that I'm working with, they're opening a new house down there, and it's available to everybody. So I'm gonna start advocating that and telling you how to get there. But it's good for everything, and that's why we can't have it. You'll hear people in Congress say, "Well, it's a club drug." It is not a club drug, and it's not fun. This is going to be part of my journey forever because it lasts a certain time, and the object is to get into a new system, get a new schedule, a new pattern. I'm working on mine too until it wears off, and then I just think I'll be personally doing it for at least annually once a year to do it. But it's not a good time. The entire experience, for me, it lasts about 50 hours. I was at a peak for about 11 or 12 hours, and it's not fun, man. It shows you hell. It shows you demons. And because it's your mind working, the most of the stuff that you think of, the worst shit you can think of, your mind will show it to you. And you can ask it to stop, but it doesn't really have to. So that's it. So when I have this shirt, Legalize Ibogaine, it's simply to raise awareness on what it is. But I'm not saying legalize Ibogaine like we legalized THC. This I would like this to be medically administered by professionals. And that's what they do in Mexico, and they're great people, and it's awesome. And we were able to eat really well too. And Legalize Ibogaine, if you want to raise awareness too, RJO Apparel, RJOapparel.com. You can get those as well as signed copies of The Operator. RJO Apparel. There's a section there in the notes where I'll literally write anything that you suggest within reason, but I get some funny ones. The funniest one I think so far was a dude was getting a birthday present for one of his buddies who he worked with, and he had me sign, Ben, you kill it selling mattresses like I killed Bin Laden, never quit, Rob O'Neill. It's pretty funny. So that's a good time. I need to tell you that today's podcast is brought to you by my friends at My Patriot Supply, the masters of preparedness. We talk about preparation all the time on this, and now more than ever, you do need to be prepared because a lot of people aren't telling you the truth. I am, of course. It's just a question of whether or not you're listening. But can you feel it now? Something even bigger is coming. Your God-given freedoms are up for the taking. Even worse, those doing the taking are the same people who've sworn to defend your freedom. They think they can violate your right to protect your own family. They think they can force their delusions onto your children. They think they can control the media and hide the truth. But you know what they can't take away? Self-reliance and peace of mind. Do you have water filtration? You should. Charged solar generator? You better. Emergency food on your shelf? If you don't have it, you can get it now from My Patriot Supply. Having served millions of American families, My Patriot Supply is the most trusted name in survival. And for a damn good reason, too. Go to my favorite website, preparewithrob.com. Preparewithrob.com right now and save $200 on their best-selling 3-month emergency food kit. It delivers 2,000 calories per day, and they're delicious, sealed inside practically unpierceable packaging. These packaging lasts up to 25 years. I have it in my garage. I know it's there for 25 years, but I also know it's there ready now if I need it. Did I mention it's delicious? It really is. 2,000 calories a day, 25 years in the packaging. That website is preparewithrob.com. Save 200 years per kit. The price will never be this low again, and there's free shipping. That's included. Preparewithrob.com. So, stay prepared, obviously, and we do talk about that. Now we're going to get into a couple current events because I am going to take this a little bit because, like I said, I'm at Cape Cod right now. So if now that you're listening to this, the zombie apocalypse is upon us. I'm not saying your neighbors are going to be delicious, but because the stock market is looking pretty bad too, I'm going to basically do whatever Warren Buffett, actually, not Warren Buffett, I'm going to do whatever Paul Pelosi does, and I should be in good hands. But there's stuff going on right now. I need to talk once again about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. I have mentioned it before, but a lot's come to fruition since then. Because believe it or not, a lot of stuff happened and didn't happen. A lot of stuff happened and did not happen that we are not made aware of because the media will not always tell you the truth. And certainly hires up in this government are going to feed you completely full of bullshit. But no short of 100 minutes, a little bit short of 100 minutes elapsed, the time that they spotted that dude and the time that he was taken out. And if you look at some of the videos of what was going on, everything from the rangefinder to a guy walking around, climbing a roof, law enforcement here and there, counter snipers, which another one is odd too, because if you notice, this is actually the first time they had counter snipers at a Trump event, which gets into the whole conspiracy theory. You know, he was in Manhattan doing that bullshit trial, going the same place every day in Manhattan, where it's what I call an urban environment, windows and danger areas everywhere. Never had a counter sniper team. Why is that? Did they not think there was a threat, and why did they have one now? It's just odd. Why was you ever notice CNN and other places like that, MSNBC never quite covered a Trump event, soup to nuts, the whole thing? They were covering it that day. You know, I'm not suggesting everything. I'm just saying there's a lot of coincidences that beg a lot of different questions. They had a rigmarole of different people who weren't on the same security team, and it wasn't a presidential detail, and they never talked to the local law enforcement, which is really weird. And they didn't have radios, which is the number one thing for me. Why would you have radios? The most important key to a successful mission is effective communication. You need to be able to talk to your people, and your people need to know what they're doing and why. They've got counter snipers up there. They're trying to make cell phone calls, and they're sending text messages. Like sometimes you don't hear a text message. They see a guy with a gun, and they're texting each other, and they're not communicating. And they're saying, well, they might have been different nets. They didn't meet with them. There are going to be different nets, and snipers are the lead on everything from the route in, the navigation to why was the perimeter so small? What was that? 140-yard shot, 150-yard shot? That's a piece of cake. That's a layup. That was out of their perimeter in an elevated position. It's inexcusable. And then they start insulting the snipers, like telling them, well, that's a slanted roof. It was really hot outside. Hot outside. Let me tell you a little story. The third week of July every year on the East Coast, we have the SEAL team reunion. And that's just a great time. That's a straight up party. A lot of different stuff. You get to see everybody. But also, there's a demonstration on the beach right there. But I don't know if it's Fort Story and NAB Little Creek now, but it's at NAB Little Creek. It might be at Fort Story. But it's a demonstration of capabilities. Everything, small unit tactics, over the beach, over the horizon. They got some boats and helicopters, fast roping, spy rigging. But one thing in the middle of it is a sniper shot where they start talking about a sniper and he takes a shot and then he stands up from his hide. And they say, he's been sneaking in the whole time. You're on a beach. He wasn't sneaking in. What we actually do is we take a junior sniper, usually who just finished sniper school that late May or June, and he's going to be the sniper. We bury him in the sand. It's Virginia Beach in July. He has to be buried 3 hours before anybody shows up. So it's hot there in July, especially under the sand, and a Camelback only lasts so long. 3 hours before people start coming in, God knows how many hours before he takes a shot. Then he stands up and has to take pictures with people, stand around when people are doing the old meet and greet and the handshakes. He's still wearing a ghillie suit. It's really hot. Don't insult the snipers by saying they can't do something on a hot roof. It's nonsense. Excuse me. And then also they said there was a cop who climbed the roof where the shooter was. But when he got to the top of the roof, his hands were on the roof. He saw the guy was definitely armed and he ran away. He said, well, my hands were on the roof. I couldn't get to my gun. If you're climbing a roof where there's potential threat with a long gun, you probably should have your gun out as you're climbing and figure out as you go up. Anyway, I know my snipers could do that. It's just, there's a lot of shady stuff that went on. And Ron Rowe is now the acting director. Kimberly Cheadle was the director. She bailed, but no one else is getting fired on this. And all they're saying is, well, it went down and we just feel bad. Do you feel bad? Because here's what I'm saying. And I'm just putting it out there for the sake of a conspiracy. You got a 20-year-old dude who's a little whackadiddle, got his dad's gun, no social media presence, even though that's bullshit. Well, we can't open his phone. Well, there's his fucking finger right there. Open his phone. Face recognition is another thing, too, because he did get blasted with probably a 308 in the face. So I don't know how that recognition would have been. But what if you got a guy, he was in that BlackRock commercial. Who was he talking to? Why was he there? Did he think he was going to get away with it? He got 8 shots off. What if he hit President Trump? And we don't have what we have today. Hit in the head, and then the sniper takes him out. Who's to say the government wouldn't just say, well, this crazy kid got up there, shot the president, we killed him, end of story. I'm just saying, I trust the government a lot less now than I did a few years ago. Let's see, what else? Oh, I was able to, when I was in Mexico and then traveling back too, I was also able, we did have television and stuff there, even though you don't want a lot of access to the internet and text messages when you're going through plant-based drugs or psychedelics, because there are psychedelics like 5-MeO DMT. I want to talk about that eventually. That is the master of all psychedelics. But a lot of things you don't want your text messages, because when you're on like a gray day with Ibogaine, you can say some mean shit to like your mom and you don't want to do that. But I was able to catch up, and on my travels back to watch some of the Olympics. And I'm sure you've been paying attention to the Olympics. I personally love the Olympics. I think the Olympics are just cool as shit because you're watching someone, you get to see them for a brief moment in time, but that person you're watching for that few seconds, few minutes, is the result of a life of training, a life of a diet, of waking up early, of training with your parents, with your coach, with your teammates. Because even if you're doing a solo sport, you got a coach. You do have your parents. And it's just cool to see if you can respect that lifelong journey to get to that point. I just think the Olympics cool. I love watching people win. It's just cool. I love a lot of the camaraderie. There was something now this is off the top of my head, so I don't have the notes, but there was a long race. I don't know if it was a marathon or something, but there was a dude from, I want to say Kenya, who was winning the race, and he misunderstood something that was happening. He was winning the race, gonna win at the end, and like he stopped because he misread a sign. There was a dude behind him, and again, I forget which country, but he pushed him along and had the Kenyan dude win the race. And they were asking him later, well, you could have won. He's like, what would that have meant? He won. I didn't win. And that's camaraderie. That's good stuff. And I think the Olympic spirit is there. I love what the men's soccer team did, football, because they're a young team and they've had ups and downs. They lost to France, but it's France and it's in France. But then they won 2. They scored 7 goals in 2 games with none scored against them. They did lose to Morocco, who's a great team, went to the final of the World Cup. But that was good for Team USA because they got experience with that. They're playing on the world stage, and I'm a big fan of the World Cup. We talked about that a few years ago, the World Cup, and I'm excited to see this. So that was good to see that. I love watching the sprinters. I love the swimming. Just cool to see people do that. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up what I thought about the opening ceremony, because I'm sure you saw it, and it got a lot of heat because they were openly mocking Christianity. I'm not going to get in a big holy war with anybody, but that's what they were doing because like when they started off, they were mocking Da Vinci's famous picture of the Last Supper. And again, I'm not saying I think the Last Supper looked like that. That was Da Vinci's rendition. It's not like that old meme that says, table for 26. Well, there's 13 of you. Yeah, but we're all going to sit on one side. That's kind of a funny meme. I don't know where to give credit for that. But they had it out there, and they've got this... They've got a lot of drag queens. There was a dude standing there with his nuts out. This is on the biggest stage for world sports. And there's a guy with his nuts out. There's kids there and a drag queen. And the main course was a blue dude and all this. And obviously there was some pushback. And they're saying, well, we never meant to offend anybody because we didn't really know what we were doing, which is bullshit. You're going to tell me you choreographed the opening ceremony for the Olympics and you got caught by surprise by something? There's 200 nations there. So I'm not buying that. But then they started backpedaling like they always do. This was the feast of Dionysus. He's a son of Zeus. The feast of Dionysus. And they got guys like Keith Olbermann, who used to be awesome, way downtown, bang, on SportsCenter. But now he's a crazy person. Like he was the son of Goose, Dionysus, I guess, and he was a god of fruitfulness, especially wine and ecstasy. Definitely a dude you want to hang out with. But this was not, no one knew who he really was unless you're studying that kind of history or whatnot. There's a story, I was looking him up, Dionysus. Am I saying that right? Probably not. But a lot of the wars, because he's the son, they're all married, gods and goddesses, and they have him. And then there was an uprising. The Athenians were punished by, I think, Zeus, by impotence. Hey, if you got it, you got it, I guess. I mean, better than killing each other. But again, nothing is, they're trying to say this is all about inclusivity. We didn't mean to offend anyone. It's so obvious what you're doing. You're just there. Christians are openly mocked. That's what they're doing. They're easy targets because Christians don't write. They really don't fight back, and Congress certainly won't for you. They'll write a strongly worded letter and maybe have a hearing. Nothing's going to happen. But I listened to a lot of people and I try to pay attention. And Christians kind of powered like civilization, and like they planting the flag for the Alphabet Mafia. There was a sporting organization, you've probably heard of it, in 1844. The kind of organized worldwide sports. It's called the Young Men's Christian Association. You might know it as a YMCA, and that's 52 years before the 1896 Olympics. It's essentially made the modern Olympics possible, and they use that platform just to mock it. And they know what they're doing. Organized sports promotes values, and they kind of chuck that in the wind just to make fun of people. And it's the same. It's a lot of the same people that are doing it because I don't know. They like doing that. I mean, Snoop Dogg. I love Snoop Dogg personally. I think he's great. But he's out there. He's lighting the torch there. He's got the torch lighting the big flame, and he was wearing a Baphomet necklace. And I've not heard of Baphomet, but I do read quite a bit. And I think he was the one, the fingers up, fingers down. You'll see the hand signals. He's wearing allegedly the necklace. It looked like it to me. I'm going to read who he is because I was kind of fascinated. The first known mention of Baphomet was in a letter written in 1098 describing the siege of Antioch during the First Crusade. We'll definitely get into the Crusades later because fascinating part of history. And if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I'm not saying I want a crusade, but a lot of shady shit going on. Anyway, the First Crusade, it started when the Turks called loudly upon Baphomet. So there's Turks out there causing shit. They're doing it again, too. Need to get into that. Most scholars believe that the name is an alteration of Muhammad or Muhammad, the founder of Islam. I don't know about that. I just got this off one of those web pages. I'm not advocating for either side. I'm telling you what I found. In 1307, Philip IV of France had every Templar in France arrested, accusing them of such heretical acts as idolatrous worship of a bearded male, I guess with a goat head, called Baphomet. That does sound shady. I'm not worshiping that dude, but I'm not talking shit about him right now either. By the 19th century, Freemasons had also been falsely said to worship Baphomet. Anyway, goat-headed winged dude with the fingers up, fingers down, and Snoop Dogg's rocking it. I'm sure it was a very expensive necklace. Maybe he didn't mean it, just saying what I saw. And then they had LeBron bring the American flag out for the USA basketball team. I'm a big basketball fan. I love Team USA. I want him to win. But then I just questioned, why would they have LeBron bring it out? He was famous for kneeling during the national anthem. The United States has made him a billionaire. And, just wondering where it came from. Why would they have him do it? Is it a slap in the face of America? Or is he the best player on the team? Probably. He's one of the best. I don't think he's the best ever. He's one of them. This is always interesting. They always bring up who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron. And I personally say Michael Jordan because he was feared. Like, he ruined people's seasons. They marked on the calendar when Jordan's coming to town. One of the best ways I've heard it proven, I saw a dude giving like a TED Talk. He was explaining I'm a simple man. I like stuff explained simply. The way he simply put it was, you can tell Michael Jordan is better than LeBron because he said to the crowd, how many people here are wearing Air Jordan stand up? And this is like last year. And a bunch of people stood up because they're wearing Jordans. He goes, how many people are wearing LeBrons? Nobody stood up. And he said, how many times have people been jumped and robbed for their LeBrons? Probably never. But, the question is, where is a lot of this coming from? Where's the... drag queens are everywhere. And I've said before, too, man, I've been to drag shows and they're fun. So I'm not dogging on drag queens, but it seems like they're being used now to throw that in our faces. The drag queens are everywhere. They're pushing sexuality, especially to kids, on a world stage, and I wonder where it's coming from. And an interesting theory on that is some of the problems in this world are non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and nonprofits. And what I've heard is one of the issues why all these, because, we've got the transgender boxers, which, especially from the left, screaming, trust the science. Well, there's the science. XX is a woman, XY chromosomes a man. It's not hard. That's science. And it's almost to the point where if we have to have the argument, is that a man or a woman beating up a woman? If we have to have that argument, we already know the answer, don't we? It's not like we're yelling at the female gymnast. Well, is that really a woman? It's just weird stuff. But I think it's coming from a lot of the NGOs and nonprofits, and I'll tell you why. It all comes down to money. It all comes down to power. Who's getting rich off what, and who can stay in power? And that goes from these NGOs to the deep state to the people on Capitol Hill. You want to keep your money. You want to keep your power. So a lot of these nonprofits originated for gay rights, which is awesome. You should be able to marry who you want. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I am a registered independent, and I really want people to be happy. Do what you want as long as you're not affecting someone else. And that includes, if people want to get married, get married. The nonprofits started that, and then we're talking hundreds of millions. They're lobbying for this stuff, lots of different websites, which was great. Raising awareness, getting politicians to ban, and all of a sudden there's gay marriage. Now, do you think people in charge of nonprofits are going to say, well, solve that problem, we're going to end it? No, they want the donations coming in. They want to maintain their power. They want to maintain their positions. They don't just go home. Hundreds of millions of dollars came in. It's still coming, and that's problem solved. What is the next? What's the next ridgeline? Where do we go next? That's where you got a lot of the stuff where it becomes acceptable to do stuff that wasn't acceptable 10 years ago. And now we got dudes beating up women, like basically getting a gold medal for domestic violence. But they mock, like I said, they mock Christianity. I've had Muslim friends say, "Why don't Christians stand up for themselves?" I've had friends ask me that, and that's true. And then I asked them, "Well, why don't they mock Islam?" Because we've seen why. Because Muslims stand up for themselves. Remember Charlie Hebdo? That was a newspaper that reprinted cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, which you don't do, because that would be idolatry, worshiping a false idol. And Islam takes that serious. You worship Allah, there's one God, and they believe that. And then Charlie Hebdo, being free speech, which again, I don't have a problem with. Say what you want. You should be able to say what you want, but that doesn't mean there shouldn't be repercussions. I'm not saying this was justified, but they reprinted these pictures of cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, and then two Algerian French brothers, they were not pleased, so they went to the headquarters. They shot dude instantly. They made a woman type in the code to get in the elevator. They went to a room and they killed. It was a total of 17 people, journalists and security. They finished up there. They went out. They were driving around. And this, the younger of these two Algerian brothers, one of them had been arrested previously for traveling to Iraq to learn from Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Should be a red flag. But, why would you keep a guy like that in jail when you can pat down a woman in a wheelchair trying to get on a flight in an airport in the United States? But they as they were doing their getaway, they ran into, this is actually on the internet, don't recommend watching it. They ran into a police officer, another Muslim. He was telling him he was Muslim, and they killed him. Tells you these are just bad people, but they're getting spun up by this shit because they made fun of. I'm not advocating violence, but sometimes you do it in the wrong place, and there could be repercussions. And then another attacker was associated with this. He killed 5 people, went in a gunfight, got holed up in a Jewish deli. And this is because they were making fun of Islam, which obviously you shouldn't be doing. But you shouldn't be mocking anyone's religion either. That's something else. Like I said, you should be able to do what you want without affecting someone else. If you're openly mocking someone else, it's kind of insulting. But yeah, that's what we have. And then you get the government involved in crap like that. And all of a sudden, look at 9/11. That gave us the Department of Homeland Security, which destroyed our borders. The government overreach. It's almost like one of those things where you have these activities where it's like defund the police, and then all of a sudden bad shit happens because there's no police. Then we all call the police, and then the police are overwhelmed, and then what happens? Well, the feds step in, they take over, and that's where you start to lose your republic, and that's where the Big Brother comes in. TSA, which well, we all know the TSA, and I think they do get a bad rap, though, because they're just people doing their jobs. I know that we have to deal with the TSA when we go to the airport, but think about their jobs. They have to deal with people traveling every single day. That's got to be a shitty job, dealing with the shitty traveler, the person that doesn't know he's got a gallon of milk in his carry-on. I think two of the worst jobs would probably be a pharmacist, working in a pharmacy, or TSA, because you got to deal with people getting their medication or people traveling. But then the Patriot Act came after 9/11. That sounds great. Hey, yeah, let's not have it again. Oh, instead we turn into a surveillance state. So, I mean, look at a lot of the stuff that's going on. What's really going on? To me, it looks like some big power grabs. You know what we got to talk about, too, is we got to talk about the plea deal. There was a plea deal recently that involved Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was the mastermind of 9/11. They're going to let him out. Now, it's been 23 years since 9/11. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was rolled up in Pakistan right around 2003. After he cut off Daniel Pearl's head on video. And I'm not sure. Don't watch that video. It's horrible. But this is a dude that did that on video. An American reporter who was Jewish caught him, cut his head off, and responsible for an attack, the worst attack in United States history on its soil. 3,000 people, and they want to give him a plea deal. Him and 2 other dudes that were involved, Walid bin Attash and Mustafa al-Hafsawi, and they exchanged their guilty pleas in exchange for not being executed, which is weird, too, because these true believers know that if they die fighting the infidel, which is us, they go to heaven, and they get a room with they get a mansion with 72 rooms, and each room has a virgin. You probably heard that before, but just the fact that we're dealing with potentially plea deals with these people that attacked us, that hate us, that issued a fatwa on us a long, long time ago, just proves that never forget is just a phrase. Never forget is forgotten. And that we've got attorneys in this country that will sell their souls to Al-Qaeda just for notoriety and some money, 15 minutes of fame. It's just bad. Here's a quote here. Now, the Department of Defense, once the plea deal was reached, the Department of Defense, Secretary Lloyd Austin overturned it. And it said, so there was Brigadier General Susan S. Collier, I might be pronouncing that wrong. This quote that I have says, the senior Defense Department official responsible for military commissions, this Brigadier General, signed a pretrial agreement on Wednesday, that was last Wednesday, a week ago, with KSM, these other two fuckers, and then that exchanged for life in prison. Then on Friday, Secretary Austin, he relieved that Brigadier General of her oversight in the case against the 9/11 plotters and canceled the whole deal, writing to her, effective immediately, in the exercise of my authority, I hereby withdraw from the 3 pretrial agreements that you signed on July 31st, 2024, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. And it looked cool when he did it. Everyone was kind of excited. Yeah, Secretary Austin all of a sudden became a patriot. Not that, he was a 4-star general. He served his country. But he's done some shady shit, too. Like when he went for a major surgery but didn't tell anybody, and his chain of command didn't know. It's a pretty big deal when the boss of the Department of Defense goes somewhere, doesn't tell anybody, the president didn't know. Why would he do it? Why would he all of a sudden do that? I have a theory on that, too, if you want to hear it. My theory is this administration and the General, Lloyd Austin, wants Kamala Harris to get elected. And this takes this talking point off the table. So the Trump campaign won't be able to say they did a plea bargain with 9/11 terrorists because they took it off the table. I think it's political, like everything in D.C. is political. Again, you don't need to take my word for it, but I hope you think and I hope you do your own research. But he took it off the table, and then the White House said, well, we had nothing to do with this, and we knew nothing, which doesn't surprise me because I honestly don't believe a lot of people in this White House know what's going on anyway. Even during the debate, that infamous debate where Joe Biden was talking sort of with Donald Trump, and then he was also live tweeting at the same time, which proves that some staffer was tweeting on his thing and we wouldn't notice. Did you see when, I'm not going to get into the hostages that were released from Russia, even though it's great. We shouldn't be doing that necessarily, but I love when Americans come home because they should be home. But giving away their criminals for our people that were innocently grabbed proves that we will negotiate and we can get money to other peoples, especially Vladimir Putin. But they were flown back and met by President Biden. He's still the president, by the way, and Vice President Kamala Harris were there. They did a little thing where Kamala Harris talked to reporters sort of and said her first thing ever since being announced as the candidate for the Democrats. She said a couple things that didn't make sense. And then, speaking of not knowing anything about what's going on, Joe Biden turned around and walked back onto the plane the hostages came off of. And everyone was off the plane, but he went up the stairs in confusion, thinking, I guess, that that's Air Force One and that's the short steps. Those are the ones I go up. But if you look at it, he went up there, went up the stairs, and everyone's kind of looking around like, what the shit is he doing? He gets on the plane for 2 minutes. He's on a plane. I mean, who knows? I'm trying to be optimistic, and I don't like to talk shit about people when I wasn't there. Maybe he was putting up the tray tables and making sure all the seats were not reclined or whatever. But you can look down the stairs, and Kamala Harris was standing there, Vice President Harris. She's not really sure what to do. She had the wherewithal to not make a big scene, but then the Secret Service kind of rolling up, and they're talking into their radios, which is actually comforting because it means they had radios for a change, which apparently they didn't. You know, when a former president is almost assassinated, they don't have radios, but for here they did. And everyone's kind of standing around like, what the fuck is he doing? 2 minutes and 28 seconds later, he came out. So, you know, there's been stuff talked about President Biden. Maybe he went in there to use the shitter because they got one on that type of plane. Or did he just go on autopilot? Did he go to try to thank the crew for the great job? Even though I don't think they were on there. A lot of stuff is there, but just, going back to the politicians involved with all this stuff and how I'm saying they don't do a great job. And they got involved, the Department of Defense and government lawyers, back to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They're saying that part of the plea deal is because some of the stuff that KSM has said was under duress at a black site. We have these places called black sites in different places where they can interrogate. And he was waterboarded a bunch of times. So they're saying whatever he said cannot be used because it was under duress when he was tortured. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't tortured when he went to different sites. Like if we go into places that we allegedly have in Jordan or Egypt or other places like that, I don't know what those dudes do to him. I personally don't give a shit. But waterboarding is not torture. Waterboarding is an inconvenience. It sucks, but you're going to walk away from it. Waterboarding is they put you on a decline bench, put something over your mouth and start pouring water, and it feels like you're drowning, and drowning sucks. But honestly, like one of the best ways to die would probably be drowning. Close your mouth, hold your breath till you pass out, and then you're just done. But it's not torture. People don't want to hear what torture is. Torture, you don't walk away from torture. You do walk away from waterboarding. I'm going to bring up a story that's not pleasant, but I want to explain to you something about torture. And it's actually kind of fitting because it has to do with Hezbollah. They're those fuckers in the Middle East that they're on one side of Israel. And Hezbollah is really brutal. So is Hamas. We hear a lot about Hamas. We're going to hear about Hezbollah. Like I said, we're recording this now. Maybe World War III has started by the time you watch this. But they're bad people. They were responsible for the 1983 barracks bombing, the bombing in Beirut that killed 241 Americans. But there was a dude there, a former SF dude, a CIA guy named William F. Buckley. And he's a badass. He was a special forces guy. He fought in Korea, fought in Vietnam. There's stories of him charging machine gun nests, the old school stuff. And some of his decorations as a warrior include the Silver Star, the Soldier's Medal, the Bronze Star with Valor, 2 Purple Hearts, Meritorious Service Medal, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, and Parachutist Badge. He received the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with a Bronze Star from the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, the ARVNs. And from the CIA, he received the Intelligence Star, Exceptional Service Medal, Distinguished Intelligence Cross. Guy's a badass career guy. He is you've got a lot of civilian awards, and he's the 51st star on the CIA's memorial wall. At the CIA, they got this memorial wall, and they don't have the names. They have stars of their agents, their targeters, their employees, if you will, the spies that were killed. And he's one of them because he was killed. But he was not killed in a good way. He was tortured. He was, I want to say he was a station chief over there, and he was rolled up by Hezbollah because he lived in an apartment out in town, and then he drove the same way to work every day. I didn't know the guy, and I'm not trying to trample on a man's grave. That it's just, you get kind of complacent when you're in a spot where he knows damn well there are people that want him dead. He knows damn well there are people that are at war with him. And even right now, when we discuss open borders, just because you don't think you're at war with someone doesn't mean they don't think they're at war with you. So you need to be aware of stuff. Don't put your head in the sand. But he got rolled up on his way in there, and he was captured and tortured for 15 months by Hezbollah. And these Hezbollah dudes were trained by the KGB. Russia's not our friend, never have been. And one of the dudes he was tortured by was a Lebanese psychiatrist, of all things, named Aziz al-Abud, and he was into medical torture, which he was with Hezbollah, and they used brainwashing drugs, physical torture. They'd grab different operatives, and this is all in Beirut. And he was the station chief, William F. Buckley, and they had him. And what they did to him, because they released videos, and he had hundreds of pages of documents that he signed under duress because he's being tortured. When people saw the videos, they could see like needle marks and holes in his body because they were pumping him full of different kinds of drugs. God knows what, because they're experimenting on him with different shit. You've got a doctor or a psychiatrist, whatever, medically torturing him. And they would keep him chained up, his arms chained up, his feet chained together. And they kept him in a cell the width and height of a coffin. And I don't know if you're claustrophobic or ever had a CAT scan. That sucks. But they kept him there 14 months. And when he gets out, they're not having fun. They're drugging him up, and then they're drilling him, man. They're drilling his joints with power tools. That's torture. Hitting him in the kneecaps. You know, it sucks when you cut your finger on a piece of paper, right? He's getting drilled by dudes. And when they did find him, they had cut his tongue out, and they castrated him. And I'm not saying medically. They cut it off. Was he alive when they did that? I don't know. But that is torture, and that's an issue. And now we've got people in different parts that are using real torture against people that, people that were burning alive in the towers and jumped out because that's a better alternative are being tortured. And these people are trying to get them out because for some reason, Guantanamo Bay has always been a political talking point. They want to empty Guantanamo Bay. Why? If this guy, if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed gets life in prison, it's not life in prison, it's life in the Caribbean. Like, if you didn't know what you were talking about, yeah, we're going waterboarding at Guantanamo Bay. That sounds like a kick-ass weekend. But a lot of these people are in bad spots, and then these are the people they're people. I take the open border seriously. Just we're people who know who I am, and we fought them over there, so we didn't have to fight them here. But now they're coming here because of politics. They're simply bringing bad people in, not because they want asylum or a better life. A lot of people are coming here because it's an open fucking door. They can get free shit from us and they can plot here. And all of these people, I'm talking ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab. I'm talking Hezbollah and Hamas, they're coming here because of a political reason, because at the end of the day, and it's a lot, the left, they want votes. And a lot of people crossing, if they can get them the right to vote, they're going to get them to vote. And sometimes in this country, you don't even need the right to vote to be able to vote. And look at right now, we're at $35 trillion in debt, and it's going up $1 trillion every 6 months. And that's from the Institute of International Finance Global Debt Monitor. $35 trillion in debt, going up $1 trillion every 6 months. And I've talked about how long it takes to count to $1 trillion. It's a lot. We're more in debt than the next four countries combined, which is China, Japan, France, and Italy. China is $14 trillion in debt, and that's crazy when that sounds good. Japan's $10.2 trillion, France $3.1 trillion, and Italy's $2.9 trillion. Those are the next four. And these government agencies that don't give a shit, the government employees that don't care the border's open, and they're not looking at the real threat until it's here, and they're going to knee-jerk reaction. Like Kamala Harris, for example, we should be cutting a lot of government programs. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We're spending too much money. Kamala Harris wants guaranteed income. That sounds awesome. Just like waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay sounds awesome, might not be, but that's $6,000 per married couple from the government. And when I say from the government, I mean from you. The government doesn't produce anything. Free college sounds great. It's not free. Taxpayer money, free childcare, healthcare, including migrants, 6-month paid leave for new parents. That sounds great, but why should the taxpayer? Why should you cover someone else? They should cover it themselves. That will bring us to $50 trillion, and this economy will collapse. You cannot print your way out of that, but unfortunately, a lot of people aren't paying attention. That's why I'm trying to tell you, do not take my word for it, though. Look around. Take your face out of your phone off of TikTok and look at stuff. And once we get to that spot and we can't print it, that's when the government takes over, and they start to take your shit. They start to take private property. Ridiculously high taxes, and then socialism. Socialism is not a good thing. We need to fund our military, but even our military is out of control. I've heard people say we should fund it with bonds and not the taxpayer money, but the money's not going to be printing itself forever. And we need to be drilling and fracking more. Energy, we can get a lot of profits out of that if we do it, but because they're force feeding you that it's not a good thing, people just believe it and they blindly go through it. You can't spend more money than you bring in. Everyone should know that. Look at the credit card debt. That's crap like that. Look at all the money that a lot of these big banks are making just from you bouncing checks from overdraft fees. They're making tons of money, not trying to do anything about it because of power, because of money. But most people don't prepare because they don't pay attention until the entire house implodes. And then they say, how did this happen? Save me, government takeover. You lose your republic doing that. And, we're not paying attention to a lot of stuff going on. Some people are voting for people on different, just for different reasons. Like first don't make you good. Try to find out what the policy is and what they're going to bring to it. We're at a point right now too, where the media, I don't know if you noticed, doesn't really like Donald Trump. They hate JD Vance. And the word of the day is weird. They're not going against policy. Well, they are. They're trying to say, there's new policies coming out that they're not a part of and they hate, but the new word is weird. They're saying weird. And they so don't care. They so don't think that you're paying attention. Is it a coincidence that you can see them saying, well, that's just weird. And I'm this weird guy. The memo went out and all they're saying is weird. They're weird. I don't give a shit if you're weird. What are your policies? How is inflation? Is the stuff I'm buying more expensive, or is their dollar worth less? I don't give a shit if you're weird, and they're justifying having children not tell their parents so they can be mutilated. And that's real. It's a talking point, again, because what's the next ridge line? That's weird. Cutting parts off of kids and putting them on other parts, that's weird. And that's in the name of healthcare. That doesn't sound like healthcare to me. And even like, for some reason, they're going after kids. There are videos out there in June, especially in San Francisco, grown-ass men are peeing in the mouths of grown-ass men. They're both naked in front of kids. And that's not weird. They're calling it pride. It just seems weird to me. Well, I want to read something to you that's been around on the internet. I don't know when it came out or whatever, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but I definitely want to get your opinion on it because I bring up open borders, I bring up mass migration quite a bit too, and I think that a lot of the mass migration we're having is if we're getting a load of people into our country that don't want to assimilate to the country, that, like, for example, go to the UK and don't want to assimilate to that, or come to the United States and don't want to assimilate, they want to bring their own culture with them. That can be a problem too. And even people that are leaving places, like when they're, Syria is just a shithole. When they come here for a better life, I get it. And I would love people to come here, respect the country, and be a part of it, because they can bring the good with them. But then you get the assholes that follow them, and those are the bullies that bring. So, like, I like people that come from Syria for a better life, but I don't want Sharia law to come here with them, and that's a problem. And we're running into a lot of those problems. You can see it now in the UK, a lot over Europe, just because they open the floodgates again, because I don't know if they're just do-gooder politicians that are. It's not an accident, a lot of stuff that's happening. Open borders are not an accident. Britain's on the brink of a civil war, and it's because of the way the locals have been treated, because anytime somebody acts up, the government lies to them, the media doesn't report it. If the locals rise up, then all of a sudden they're the bad guys. And it's going to come here too if a lot of this nonsense happens. I'm not trying to incite violence. I don't want it, but just people in power that want votes are doing bad shit, and they know it. Like a lot of people come to this country are using TikTok. They have waypoints on there, and that's Chinese. A Chinese algorithm is telling them exactly how to get here. Countries are opening their prisons and their mental wards, sending them here. And what do you think they're going to do here? They're not going to be greeters at Walmart. But I wanted to get your opinion on this thing that I read. And it's not, again, this is not my opinion. I just want to see what you think. It's an analogy called the bird feeder. And this person says, I bought a bird feeder. It hung on my back porch and filled it. I bought a bird feeder. I hung it on my back porch and filled it with seed. Within a week, we had hundreds of birds taking advantage of the continuous flow of free and easily accessible food. But then the birds started building nests in the boards of the patio above the table next to the barbecue. Then came the poop. It was everywhere, on the patio tile, the chairs, the table, everywhere. Then some of the birds turned mean. They would dive bomb me and try to peck me, even though I had fed them out of my own pocket. And other birds were boisterous and loud. They sat on the feeder and squawked and screamed at all hours of the night and demanded that I fill it when I got low on food. After a while, I couldn't even sit on my own back porch anymore. I took down the bird feeder, and in 3 days, the birds were gone. I cleaned up their mess and took down the many nests they had built all over the patio. Soon the backyard was like I used to have it, quiet, serene, and no one demanding their rights to a free meal. Now, let's see. Our government gives out free food, subsidized housing, free medical care, free education, and allows anyone born here to be an automatic citizen. Then the illegals came by the tens of thousands, in this case by the millions. Suddenly, our taxes went up to pay for free services, small apartments. They're housing 5 families. You have to wait 6 hours to be seen by an emergency room doctor. Your child's secondary grade class is behind other schools because over half of the class doesn't speak English. Cornflakes now come in bilingual boxes. I have to press 1 to hear my bank talk to me in English. People waving flags other than Old Glory or squawking and screaming in the streets, demanding more rights and free liberties. Maybe it's time for the government to take down the bird feeder. I read this online. It's a couple years old. And I just want to know what you think about that too, because a lot of people aren't coming to these places to better it. They know they're coming here. I heard some guys in Germany that came from a Middle East country laughing. They couldn't find the Germans because they're all at work while they're maintaining free stuff because of the taxpayer. And when the locals stand up, which they're having right now in the UK, the new prime minister comes out and calls it far-right thuggery. And they're saying this is criminal violence, not legit protests. That's Keir Starmer, the new prime minister. Recently in Southport, Merseyside, the UK, 3 children were killed. 10 others were wounded in a knife attack. 8 of those 10 wounded were kids. They were at a dance yoga class, a Taylor Swift thing, and the 17-year-old, he's a British citizen. He was born in Wales. His parents are from Rwanda. But even and he's not a migrant. He's born there. But this is an issue with people seeing stuff like this happen. No respect for the country. Went and stabbed kids, and these are little girls. The class was like for 7 to 11-year-olds. This guy goes in there, knifes people down. 2 of them died there. 1 died on the way to hospital. Some are still in critical. And then when they show they show a picture of this kid, they kept calling him a 17-year-old boy. I think right now he just turned 18, but a 17-year-old boy is not someone who goes into a knife stabbing people. And the picture they're showing of this kid, or of an 11-year-old boy, is the same shit they use. You know, when the locals protest, it's far-right thuggery. But when this guy rolls in there, they show a picture of a boy, and obviously something was wrong with his head. And it's a lot of this bad stuff comes when people don't respect the country that they're in. I don't even care if you're born. Then we got bad shit here too. I'm not saying we're any better, but there's bad things everywhere. But if you're doing this and letting there was a story I read, because that dude wasn't a migrant, he's a citizen. But what inspires you to do that? Mental health, obviously. What are his parents teaching him? Where's he hanging out? What are they teaching him about this country? I mean, we've heard, I've heard of the hardcore Islamists call infidels, that's me, that's a lot of you, as the most vile of created beings, and this is the way we deserve to be treated. I don't think so. I don't think, easy for me to say, but I don't think people should treat each other that way. But eventually people are going to stand up. We're on the bridge of civil war in a lot of places. I don't want it to come to that. I hate war, and if there could be peace, I'd love to have it. But then we get into speech laws, and freedom of speech goes away, and they start suppressing people and shutting people down. It doesn't make things better. Some of these dudes, and people don't like when you say, believe it or not, some places are different. There are different places that are different, 42nd and 10th in Manhattan is different than the Korengal Valley in the Konar province in Afghanistan. People are different. They're raised different. They think different. That's why you have to assimilate. That's why it's important that people know their history. But right now, we're not even teaching our own kids their own history. People don't know the history. They're taught that the founding fathers were racist. They never bring up that the Democrats started the KKK. They never mention that Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves, was the first Republican. I'm not a Republican either. Like I said, I'm an independent. But Afghans are different. People born in the valleys of Afghanistan are different. They don't know what time is. I've mentioned before, I knew a dude, he knew his 5 brothers' names, but he didn't know what the number 5 meant. The dude that told me when I said, if we surrounded my country in 200 years put a man on the moon and brought him back, if we surrounded Afghanistan with a 10,000-foot high fence that was electrified, in 10,000 years you wouldn't have invented a television. He said, Mr. Rob, you're so stupid you can't put a man on the moon. It's this big. They just think a little bit differently than we do. You need to teach them how, the way stuff works. There's a story that I read today of a train in the UK that had to screech to a halt because there was an Afghan national literally masturbating on the tracks. And they slammed on the brakes. I'm not making this up. And it skidded to a halt right in front of him. And I guess he didn't even stop jerking off. He went to finish. So, technically, based on last week's podcast, he owns that train station. That's how it is. But, stuff's been happening over there that the media completely ignores. Dude speeding at a soldier crossing a crosswalk, run him over, hop out, cut his head off, showing people his hands. And this is bad stuff. But then when someone rises up, it's far left-wing violence. And, they're sending cops to places to hate speech because you posted something. That's wrong. You're suppressing speech. And that's bad. And again, I read you the bird feeder just because I saw it and it was intriguing. Please tell me in the comments at the Operator Podcast or at Mchooyah, MCHOOYAH. I monitor both of them. I'm not always answering you. Sometimes it's my team, so be nice to them. I'm the only one that answers Mchooyah, so if you have something shitty to say it there. But if I'm wrong, I'll correct it. And but it's important to just to realize that don't believe me, and don't believe, do your research, get several sources, look it up for yourself, try to keep yourself educated, get your head out of your fucking phone, and you're never out of the fight.